Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Lexa Peterson, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Officer Cadet Alexander Pozowski Pascoe. We warmly welcome the family of Private William George Lampan, whose story will be told shortly. We're honoured to acknowledge Rear Admiral Justin Jones, Royal Australian Navy Chief of Joint Operations, and the accompanying delegation. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed at the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private William George Lampan. William Lampan, known as Willie, was born in Queensland on the 15th of July 1895 to Sarah and William Lampan. His father's original name was Lampan. He was a Chinese immigrant who had settled in Milchester, now a suburb of Charters Towers in Queensland, where he is a prominent member of the Chinese community, working as a herbalist and a doctor. In September 1901, when Willie was 6 years old, his mother died, and Dr. Lampan was left to raise 6 children aged between 2 and 16. While there was a degree of acceptance of the Chinese community in Charters Towers, racism was still prevalent, and the Lampan children suffered. With the loss of their mother, they became hard to control. Willie was arrested for stealing at least once, although his father's influence seemed to have spared him time in a reform school, which was suffered by his partner in crime. Lampan is said to have become increasingly difficult and strict with his children. Dr. Lampan died when Willie was 15 years old, at which point he went to live with his older sister, Mary Ann, and her husband. In 1910, Mary Ann's father-in-law, Charles McAllister, took on a property in Ayr, Queensland. Willie, his sister, and her husband went to live there. Initially, he worked on the McAllister's plantation, but 5 years later reported that he was working as an engine driver in Ayr. Willie Lampan enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in March 1915. He underwent a period of training in Australia before embarking for active service overseas with reinforcements to the 15th Battalion. He went to Egypt, where he continued training in the desert before being sent to fight on the Gallipoli Peninsula. He joined the rest of his battalion there on the 2nd of August 1915. 4 days later, the battalion left its bivouac lines in Reserve Gully and headed for the heights. They went on to attack Abdul Rahman Bear Heights, known to the Australians as Hill 971, on the 8th of August. At some point during the battle, Private William Lampan was killed in action. Little is known of the manner of his death, although his friend, Private John Mackenzie, wrote to Mary Ann McAllister to say that Private Lampan was killed fighting like a hero in the Turkish trenches between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. He had been on the Gallipoli battlefields just 6 days. The body of William George Lampan was lost in the heavy fighting, so today he is commemorated on the Lone Pine Memorial. He was 20 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private William George Lampan, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.